Welcome. I'm Ruffian Tittmann. I'm the Executive Director of the Friends of the Wissahickon. This is our annual public projects meeting that we have every year, this time of year, to let you, the public, our good friends, know what we have done in the Wissahickon over the past year, what we're looking to do immediately this year in 2024, and things that our good partner, the Water Department, has participated the last several years and are here again tonight to share some great updates and give you some information on the work they'll be doing in the park this year. And we'll have some information about probably some projects that won't go into, you won't see them on the ground in the Wissahickon, but we're working busily at FOW to get them ready for construction in subsequent years. So that was my introduction and my welcome. Welcome to all of you. Thank you. I'll go over a little bit about how we focus our work, what guides us along the way. It'll be my great pleasure then to turn it over to Shawn Green, who is our Director of Field Stewardship, and he'll talk about some of the great work that happened with volunteers this past year in 2023, and will continue in 2024. Just a spoiler, some really amazing things happened in 2023 with our volunteers. A few projects that I really feel are contractor level work that in past years we may have had to pay a lot of money to get done, but through the addition of some key staff positions and just our amazing core, we accomplished some really terrific things that Shawn will tell you about. Then we'll hear from Rick Howley from the Water Department about some upcoming work in the Wissahickon from PWD. And then I'll be turning it over to Pauline Berkowitz to talk about the large-scale capital projects that we have going on. And then you'll hear from me again at the end. Lucky you. I think most of you know FOW. How many people are members or volunteers here tonight? Yay. Thank you all. This year is our 100th anniversary, and you are among over 3,000 members and friends of the Friends of the Wissahickon. We do all of our work in partnership with Parks and Recreation. We're one of their official park partners, and we do also partner very closely with the Water Department in the Wissahickon. And all of this is to make the park cleaner and more accessible, more enjoyable, and allow all of us to continue to treasure and benefit from this great asset. So thank you. There's our wonderful staff. I mentioned you'll be hearing from two of our great staff, Shawn Green and Pauline Berkowitz, but there's a whole great support team here that make everything happen. And we'll be growing by 2 people. We've just started the hiring process for 2 new positions, so there'll be more smiling faces soon. As I mentioned, our work is guided really built on now a foundation of diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and belonging. You can read more about what that means in our 2023 to 2026 strategic plan. You'll see that that is throughout all of our main goals for this 3-year period. And in addition to our strategic plan, we continue to utilize the Ecological Land Management Plan, the ELM Plan, that looks at all the ecology of the park, breaks it down into habitat and management units, and allows us to really focus on what are the best things to promote and where are there data gaps that we need to fill. So we continue to work through that. The Sustainable Trails Initiative plans, we are working through the completion plan. We have a little bit left to go. And then again, really, really important to how we pick projects and where we focus our energy is our partnerships with Parks and Recreation and the Water Department. And I always like to highlight this because sometimes we get a lot of questions. Why is FOW doing this? Why isn't the city or PPR or PWD doing that? And we really are a great public-private partnership with the city, and work very closely with the staff of those 2 departments to really find ways that we can amplify and leverage the resources that either department has to bring more to the Wissahickon. And so with that, I get to sit down and I am going to turn this over to Shawn Green.
Thank you, Ruffian. Welcome, everybody. So I'm just one member of a fantastic field team, so I do want to give a shout out to Amelia, Patricia, and Varian, who help us run all of our volunteer programs and a lot of the fantastic projects I'll be talking about. But volunteers really are the engine that runs the stewardship work that we do in the park. I hate to imagine what the Wissahickon would be like without this fantastic community of volunteers, many of which are here tonight. We've already gotten off to an amazing start this year. Our Martin Luther King Day of Service had 240 volunteers, which is the biggest turnout we've had at a single location. So we're already smashing records, and I'm looking forward to a really, really fantastic year. So I'll be talking about some of the things we have coming up, but before, I always get excited when I get to highlight the different things that volunteers have taken part in. So looking back on 2023, which feels so long ago, here's kind of a quick overview of some of the stats. We had over 1,500 individual volunteers, which is an increase of a couple hundred from 2022. We also had over 16,600 volunteer hours. So to give a little bit of context, in 2022, we had just under 12,000. So we're seeing huge increase in volunteers coming out and returning, many of which at our volunteer service days. Has anybody in the audience, I know some of you have been to some of our volunteer service days, probably most of you. Go ahead, you can wave. Thank you. Hope you had a good time. We had 194 last year, which is, again, smashing records, the most we've had in 1 year, all throughout the park, different projects all year round, as well as 14 corporate groups, which also really helps to increase what we're doing. But I'm so glad that we were joined by celebrity David Bauer here, because I wanted to give a shout out to him. He wasn't able to attend our volunteer recognition night, so Dave was at volunteer recognition night, but so if you're unfamiliar, David Bauer leads our Sunday and Wednesday volunteer service days. He set a goal last year of doing 100 service days in celebration of us turning 100. Not only did he reach that goal, but he did 103 service days with his trusty crew of trail ambassadors and crew leaders. So thank you, David.
Shawn, if I could jump in, all the crew leaders and trail ambassadors who've been part of that, raise your hands. Yeah, that's a lot of people.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody. So overall, we've removed 17 tons of litter from the Wissahickon, from our streams, from our forests. About 3,600 pounds of that were removed by our Wissaheroes. If you haven't heard of that, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but those are a program we started in 2020 when we were in lockdown, encouraging people to go out on their own to clean, and it just continues. People are still very active, and we're so happy to see that. Our trail ambassadors are our outreach and education side. They've been very active this year, led 67 guided walks and talks of a whole variety of topics all throughout the park, as well as completing 156 outreach shifts, so hiking shifts and outreach tables. So they've been instrumental in communicating to the public and providing a lot of insight to all of our park users. And I'd like to highlight a variety of really, really cool projects that Ruffian spoiled. So I broke them into a couple categories. First of all, our trail improvements. As you may know, we have over 50 miles of trails all throughout the Wissahickon, and all of them are in need of some type of work and love and attention. And that's a large part of what we do. We cleared 109 downed trees, thanks to Varian and Patricia overseeing those operations, working very closely with our select crew of trained crew leaders, as well as working with our wonderful partners from Power Corps PHL. And overall, we improved 33 miles of trails. That's not cutting 33 miles of trails. You can't just set it and forget it. They all need work, and a lot of that thanks goes to our volunteer crew leaders, who, part of our Zone Steward initiative that we launched a couple of years ago, we have assigned to different sections of the park and groups, and they're going out on their own to do corridor and sightline clearing, reporting damages to us. So it's been really, really successful, and also helping to keep the trails clear. And then we've had a couple heavier duty projects that we worked on. So we rerouted a trail leading to Hermit's Cave that was heavily eroding, installed rock steps on the Orange Trail leading up to Devil's Pool, where a cluster of downed trees had torn up the trail, added rock hops to a frequently muddy section at the entrance by Gatehouse Lane, built a large retaining wall, which you'll hear a little bit more about when Pauline talks about Harvey Street, and we rock armored a gully crossing over on the Yellow Trail by Sumden Old Line. So no easy feat, and thank you to all the volunteers that helped to take part in that. We also have tons and tons of structures in the park, and a lot of these are worked on with our regular structures crew that meets every Tuesday morning, except for January. Got rained out pretty much every day in January because we actually had winter this year. This is the crew that is repairing fences and signs and repairing benches, simple things that just need attention. On top of all of that work, there were some really remarkable things done, including completely rebuilding the chess table at Valley Green Inn, which was knocked over. I don't think anybody claimed responsibility for that one, but we fixed it. Built 6 new picnic tables, 2 of which are in a new picnic area on Forbidden Drive by Jeanette Street. There's a planting there. If you haven't had a picnic, I have. You guys should go and enjoy it. It's beautiful. And then we also repaired or completely rebuilt 5 footbridges in the park, which was no easy feat. Some of these were in the heat of summer in locations that we had to haul a lot of heavy material in. That was a partnership with our structures crew and crew leaders together. Habitat restoration, whether it's removing invasive plants or planting native trees and shrubs, there's tons to do. Last year, we removed over 122,000 square feet of invasive vegetation. Fortunately, that'll never grow back. And we also planted a whole lot. So over 1,000 native plants. About half of that are herbaceous, but among that, 246 trees, 209 shrubs. Our 4 main areas that we focused on this year was continuing a riparian planting just north of the Red Covered Bridge next to Forbidden Drive. On the Yellow Trail uphill from Kitchens Lane, Harvey Street tract, we've been putting a lot of work. You'll hear more about that, but we've been continuing to restore the habitat in that area. And then along the fence line at Andorra Meadow, sort of building a natural screen to kind of block out some of the artificial light that has been popping up. Engagement with our youth has always been really important to us. Since FOW's been around, we've always worked with school groups. Last year alone, we had 11 different school groups that came out to work on service projects in the park. But something that we've really been wanting to do beyond having that kind of one and done visit with students is to have returning students, recurring engagement. And so last year we launched our pilot year of what we've been calling our Junior Stewards program. And that is aimed at having recurring engagement with students in the school district of Philadelphia. So we had 3 externs in spring who joined us a couple hours a day for a couple of weeks, working kind of around our workshop. And what we're really excited about was our first time having a internship program that lasted for kind of the duration of an entire school year. So we have 3 interns, 2 of which from Lankenau High School and 1 from Saul Agricultural High School that worked with us through the fall. They'll be coming back to us in March and continuing to work with us. So they've been learning a whole lot about habitat restoration, trail building, tool maintenance, pretty much everything that goes into environmental conservation. And then this spring we're trying something new. We have a spring break trail building experience. So if you know of any high school students in the school district of Philadelphia that might be interested, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the last week in March, we're going to be working with them to plan, prep, and cut new trails. So we're really excited about that. And that brings us to the present, 2024. So consider this your official formal invite to come join us. At any of our volunteer service days by spring, they'll be up and running pretty much almost every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So more days of the week than not, we've got something going on. Easy to sign up. You don't have to have any sort of experience. Just come out and have fun with us. And if for whatever reason that doesn't work into your schedule, don't worry. You can take part in some of our individual stewardship projects like habitat monitoring, or become a Wissahickon hero and plan your own litter cleanup. We have info on both on our website, as well as how to get involved in any of our volunteer service days. If you belong to a group, we welcome groups at our service days, or reach out to us. We can put together a private event. And finally, here's just a snapshot of some big service day events that we have going on, some of which are not built yet, but I really want to put inside everybody's head tonight is we have our Super Mega Volunteer Service Day, Part 2, I guess. Just add more words to it. The return. Yes, the return. The sequel. This is going to be our Earth Day event, also celebrating 100 years. We will have 5 locations going on all throughout the park. So that is up on our website. Please come out and join us. And then we have a whole bunch more working towards the spring. And so please look us up, sign up, join us, and thanks for joining us tonight. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Rick Howley, an environmental engineer with the Philadelphia Water Department.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Thanks for having me here tonight. Appreciate the introduction. I was all prepared to say, yeah, my name's Rick Halley and I work for the Water Department. So my group is an office that works on natural restoration projects, usually stream restoration projects, wetland restoration projects. They're usually based around where Water Department infrastructure assets are located. So storm sewers, sanitary sewers, water mains, stuff like that. I'm just going to tell you guys about one project which should be getting started in the next few weeks here. I'm waiting to get my submittals from the contractor. It's the Parkline Drive Interceptor and Gorgas Chute and Outfall project. Here's a map of the locations. So the Parkline Drive Interceptor crossing, you guys are probably familiar with the tolerance statue. So if you take the trail down off of Parkline Drive, you'll get to a spot where there's a crossing that goes over the stream there. That's actually a sewer interceptor. There's a 5-foot diameter sanitary sewer that runs underneath that little pathway there when you're walking across the stream. So that's one of the project sites. I guess I have more slides moving up, so I won't get into too much detail while we're just looking at the map. But the other 2 sites are actually located right next to each other. They're located right off of Gorgas Lane. And basically you just come down Gorgas Lane and you come up the yellow trail just a little bit. And there's a stormwater outfall that drains a small part of Henry Avenue. And then there's another stormwater outfall that has the apparently from a TV show famous stormwater chute. I don't know the show very well. Pauline was explaining it to me. Yeah, I've kind of heard a few things about that. So hopefully it looks familiar. But so getting back into the Parkline Drive site first. So this is what the infrastructure kind of looks like right now. The pictures themselves might be like a year old or something, but you can see that the concrete on the interceptor I keep saying the interceptor crossing. It's a sanitary sewer. We call it an interceptor based on like where it is and all the connecting sewers. So the trail here that goes across the top of that structure, the pipe is actually directly underneath your feet, with a few, like maybe a couple feet of concrete in between you and that, obviously. And then, so in this picture, the sewer's actually up here, and then this culvert is what allows the stream to flow through there. Now, what you can see is that there had been some old repairs done, and the stream just continues to wear away on the ground, on the stream bed below the structure there. So any undermining like that is something that's not really good for the structure. And what we're going to do here is we're going to clean off the entire structure, repoint it with mortar, and then actually going downstream, what we're looking at is doing some stream bank restoration and scour hole stabilization. So basically putting big rocks in the stream and then augmenting that with some plantings, some trees and grasses to keep everything stable. if you guys have any questions about that, I can answer them, or you can follow up with Pauline or Ruffian, and I can send you guys information. I also have some summary sheets over here. I only brought 10, so I'm a little light on those. But I didn't know there was going to be such a great crowd.
Rick, I have a question before you move on from
Sure.
the Highline Interceptor there. It's very difficult to walk across there because it's rounded. Do we have any plans to flatten that out a little bit? Or
No, unfortunately, no.
You can do that?
It's just going to be the same thing that it is. Yeah, I'm going to show the trail diversions later too, because I do want to make sure. I'm sure everybody's interested in hearing about that. We didn't see any need at the time. Everybody's already using it, and it seems relatively safe, I guess. People don't. It doesn't seem like anybody's gotten in any trouble out there. So, yeah, good on everybody for that one. So yeah, really just repair. Cheaply, I guess. Well, not really cheaply, but repairing the infrastructure. Repairing all the concrete. You can see this is actually the crown of the sewer itself has become exposed, so the concrete is worn away, and then the cover wore away. So yeah, repairing the structure is the big deal there. Over at the Gorgas site now, this is a picture of the old scour hole in front of the outfall there. That's not exactly what we're repairing here, but the big deal is the chute that stems from an outfall off of Fountain and Henry, the local Henry. There's like 2 Henrys there. It's kind of interesting. So the chute is actually in bad shape. There's a lot of cracks and holes in it. A bunch of the segments of it are settling at different rates, so it's almost like kind of shifting and kind of morphing apart. So the plan there is to use a particular type of concrete to fill in all the holes, patch the whole thing up, and then use a different kind of mortar for the grout in between the segments, so that it's a little bit more pliable and can like fit in there and also not like immediately crack. Around the chute, we're going to do a lot of regrading. We're going to do a lot of planting. We actually are going to try to plant a lot of shade-tolerant plugs and grasses underneath the Henry Avenue Bridge, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes, because it's pretty much barren underneath there right now. When you don't get a lot of light, you don't get a lot of vegetation.
So for the chute, why not replace it with something that would just, basically a spreader kind of system to just let it...
So we had thought about doing something where we were going to do maybe stone steps, like stone weirs or something like that coming down the hill. There were a couple of reasons why we didn't go with that. Money being part of it, unfortunately, but really the biggest deal is anytime you do that, so the outfall is very high up on the hill and it's a relatively big one. So when you get a lot of water flushing down the hill like this, it can easily start to tear apart structures like that. So out of an abundance of caution, we said, hey, there's already a chute there. If we just repair the chute, it's kind of a cheap way to just, get things back in order and get the chute working again, rather than take the risk of removing it, installing a bunch of step pools and everything, and then having them potentially fall apart. It's like really steep. It's, off the top of my head, I don't know the exact slope of it, but it's
greater than 25%.
Yeah, it's steep. So the risk there, it would take a lot of very large rocks set up in particular step pools, and honestly, I don't even with the size of the outfall and the flow that comes out of it, I'm not even we had explored that idea and then kind of quickly came to the conclusion that it would be a pretty high risk in order to do that. So this is not my favorite thing in the world to just put cement back on stuff, but it was just what kind of seemed to be the most practical thing to do at this site. But I do like the idea that we're trying to plant around it, regrade it. We're adding some extra stone down at the bottom. At the bottom of the chute actually turns. So what happens during larger storm flows is the water comes down, and water doesn't like to turn randomly, so it just jumps right out of the chute. So it was causing erosion problems on the other side of it. So the plan there is to add extra stone, just to kind of keep that part of the land right there stable before it gets to the trail. The trail is actually lined with rock right there so that stays stable as well. We have a manhole right on the other side, so we're very particular about trying to protect all the infrastructure, of course. At both of these sites, I'm going to get into the outfall real quick too. and we'll take a look at the trail map. But there are 2 trail bridges out there. I've been talking to my construction team that is working with the contractor. They said right now, and again, like, this is stuff that needs to be sorted out because they have to do their submittals and everything first, and I got to review them. But right now, the plan is to remove, according to them, is to remove those trail bridges and then fill in the entire thing, and then have the equipment go over it to do the repair work, and then remove all the aggregate that was placed there, and then put the trail bridges back on. So the trail bridges should be in good shape. You know, we know how important the trail bridges are in the first place, and you know that they were somewhat recently rebuilt. So we're trying to really do good by the trail bridges. This is the other site that's at Gorgas. So this is the outfall off of Henry Avenue. As you can tell, what happened there, it appears, is that the segments of the pipe started coming apart. As they did, the water started getting underneath them and scooping and kind of eroding the dirt out from underneath them. And then it eventually continued to collapse and just continued to collapse on itself. So what you're seeing there is essentially, I guess, water from, like, you know, not immediately after or during a storm, but, you know, there's water coming out of it. So it was relatively close to when it had rained. So you can tell that, like, you know, once this structure has fallen apart, now the stormwater comes out, hits all this rock and concrete that's in the way, and just completely blows out the banks and everything around it. One of the issues with this, when we did the other project, the outfall was in decent shape, and then it actually started deteriorating during the project. We put, so we did a previous project at Gorgas, and we put a bunch of rock around the trail to make sure that the yellow trail stayed stable with that stormwater coming down the hill. So the plan now is to add a new manhole towards the top of the hill here, and then we're going to have a series of manholes as we bring the water down through essentially a series of steps within the pipes. So there'll be a series of pipes, about like 5 or 6 pipes connected to 5 manholes that bring the water down the slope and then discharge it through an outfall. And the key thing with this is getting the water off of Henry Avenue safely, not having it erode the stream and undercut trees out there. Unfortunately, a few big trees will have to come down in order for us to do this work. But the other key is the stormwater now is going to be conveyed through this pipe underneath the yellow trail. So the trail won't be in jeopardy anymore, and that'll be stable in perpetuity. From there, basically the outfall discharge onto a rock apron, and then there's actually a big bedrock outcrop there that'll flow over, as it already does, down to the Gorgas Run. So I wanted to highlight the trails. Actually, if you don't mind, I usually don't like podiums, but I'm going to walk over here just to point at this a little bit. So this is the Park Line site over here. The trail closures are going to be that the trail from Park Line and Border is going to be closed. That's going to be our access point, and our staging and stockpiling is going to be done up at that intersection. So there's going to be heavy equipment going down the trail here, and then getting to that spot where the sewer crossing is really close to that statue down there. Unfortunately, this portion of the trail is going to be closed off. There'll be a diversion sign up here telling you, hey, you're going to run into the construction site. There's going to be a fence there. There'll be a diversion sign at the street too. The one thing we are working with the contractor to try to set up is an alternative, like spur trail, I guess, just to get everybody onto the white trail and without interrupting what's going on with the construction project. The other one is we're going to put a sign over here by Bluebell, because it's better to inform people ahead of time that they're going to be cut off when they get up here, because the only way across the stream once you get up here is via the sewer crossing there. None of these sites are like huge or anything. I'm used to working on a lot of sites that are a lot bigger. So if you look at the summary forms, I put a very conservative estimate of the time it's going to take. I think I did like 8 months. I don't think it's going to take that long, and it's certainly not going to take 8 months at each particular site either. So this trail will probably just be shut down for a few months, and we try to do everything we can to keep as many of the trails open as possible. So Over at the Gorgas site, the trail's going to be shut down from the end of Gorgas Lane where it goes into the park. We don't need to go across the bridge that goes across the stream there, so there'll be a sign on the other side. But the yellow trail as it goes up the hill there and runs parallel to Henry will be closed. So there'll be another sign here. And the majority of the work is the storm sewer is right here, and the chute is basically like from Fountain Street right here down. So both of those are like right here. So that's why like the trail itself is going to be, this portion of the trail is going to be closed absolutely for a while. I was talking to our construction team about seeing if, maybe once we get equipment here and maybe we could do some staging and stockpiling here rather than over on the Gorgas Lane Trail. And that way we could kind of open this back up. But I can't promise that right now. I haven't spoken with the contractor, and we're still sorting everything out with the submittals and everything. So, I'm talking a lot, sorry. This is my stuff. And I'm saying construction is initiated. We had the pre-con meeting out in the field last week on Tuesday. So I'm thinking, considering they don't have the submittals in yet, that it's probably going to be more like late February when they get started. And from what I've heard from the construction team, they're going to start at the Gorgas site first, even though I started at the Parkline site, which is just the way I've been doing that mentally for 3 years. They're going to start at the Gorgas site first and then move on to the Parkline. The contractor who won the bid is actually the contractor that did the Gorgas site previously, so they're very familiar with the site and kind of the interaction of the trail patrons and everything there. So I think that should work out good, and I'm really looking forward to it getting started. The construction stuff in the field is kind of my favorite thing to be involved in. So, thank you. Back to Ruffian, Pauline.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Pauline Berkowitz. I'm the project manager at Friends of the Wissahickon, and I'll be talking to you about some capital projects. So these are the 3 projects that we'll be diving in with you the most. So starting with the Wissahickon Valley Park Germantown Neighborhood Connection project, I'll be providing some updates about that, as well as introducing our Pachella Gully project that we're doing in partnership with the Water Department, and then I will turn it over to Ruffian to provide some updates about the Valley Green Run project. But before, I wanted to share the exciting new kiosks that went into the park last year. This is part of our wayfinding and signage plan that was implemented in 2016 that saw the installation of over 25 kiosks throughout the park, as well as wayfinding posts, and provides a formal way for visitors to interact with and understand how they get around the park. And so the tertiary or single panel kiosks that you see here had been identified in the plan to be installed, and as funding became available last year, we were able to put them in. So that includes Cathedral Road, which is by Courtesy Stable, Sumac Street down in the southern end of the park, as well as Harvey Street, which is in connection with our capital project there, and then Rittenhouse Street across the street from Sailor Grove. And then I also have some status updates to share about projects that are still in the planning and design phase that we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes throughout the year, though the public may not see that up until next year. So the first is the Restroom Master Plan pilot project. This is in connection with our Restroom Facilities Master Plan, which we completed last year. As Ruffian said, we have a couple of copies over there if you want to look through. It's also online. But that plan offered recommendations for a number of facilities throughout the park. And the Rex Avenue WPA shelter was identified for the pilot project because of its location in a high visitation area, as well as its proximity to utilities such as sewer and water. So over the next year, we'll be developing plans and designs for that. And then our East Falls Reroute and Habitat Restoration Project, which is an STI priority project to close 280 linear feet of trail, and we're doing that with a 320 linear foot reroute, as well as the construction of stone steps that will retain the hillside that's been eroding there, and also restore access that has kind of been compromised due to the hillside and its steepness by Gypsy Lane. Our contractor is available in 2025, so that's when that work will be taking place, and it's going to be a hybrid style project with our staff and volunteers. So diving into our more active capital projects, our Germantown Neighborhood Connection project, we're looking at the trails and the sidewalk and crosswalk. A summary of the project is to improve the parkland that is there. There had been trails, but getting in there and making sure that they're sustainable, that they're able to be traversed easily, improving the native habitat there, and amenities such as this footbridge that you see that was put in by our structures crew last year, the kiosk that you saw in the previous slides, as well as wayfinding posts. And of course, a big component of this project is to build a sidewalk and crosswalk. And this project is funded by the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. We have money from Councilwoman Cindy Bass of the 8th District, the National Recreation and Park Association through their corporate sponsors Sensodyne, the Clean Air Council, the Garden Club of Philadelphia, and we're also excited to share that we were recently awarded a grant from the Department of Community and Economic Development through their Philadelphia Local Share Account Grant Program, which has helped us close the gap in funding for construction of the sidewalk and crosswalk. So what we did last year was a lot. We planted just under 600 herbaceous flowering plants, as well as 130 trees and shrubs. These are all native plants that either serve to restore a canopy gap that were in the project area, or general beautification or restoration of the understory in that area. The new footbridge, which you saw a photo of, as well as the wayfinding. We repaired 3 stone staircases. Those were part of an old estate that had been on the project area, and Jane Henry, who had lived there, donated her land to be part of the Fairmount Park Commission. And so with Premier Masonry came in to restore some steps. You see the before and after. There was a lot of missing mortar and missing stone, and so 3 of those were repaired in that area. And a lot of trail work got done, as Shawn alluded to before, with the construction of a retaining crib wall, and then a trail reroute to rebuild a climbing turn, which is the most sustainable way to kind of address a change in elevation along the trails. So this year we are going to be continuing with our habitat restoration, and then we'll also be releasing a bid, construction bid for the sidewalk and crosswalk. So here's a photo of the retaining wall. This was all built by hand. The machine did some of the moving the rocks.
There should be applause for that.
Look how beautiful it is.
It was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. It took us some months, sweat, tears, no blood, I don't think. But so these stackable boulders we got from a local quarry, and then built it, and then we cap it with mineral soil to kind of restore the natural trail tread that you're familiar with in the rest of the park. And then here I wanted to provide just additional detail of what you might expect of the new sidewalk. It's kind of split into 2 screens because Harvey Street is so long, but right over there is where our kiosk is. So if I were to exit the trail, I could walk down the street, continue down this way, even cross the street, and then make my way down to the Henry Houston statue, and enjoy the surroundings, watch the cars go by. And I wanted to close up a little bit on the crosswalk. This is a new feature that doesn't currently exist. There are sidewalks at Harvey Street, but they are crumbly. So we're fixing those, but we also wanted to add this crosswalk to provide safe passage for pedestrians across the street. And so in compliance with Philadelphia Streets guidelines, we have these traffic calming elements to improve safety. So that includes having the raised crosswalk as well as the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which flash yellow lights when you're crossing so everyone knows that you're doing it. And then moving on to our Pachella Gully Restoration and Sedimentation Reduction Project. This is looking at the trail that goes from the upper neighborhoods in Roxborough down to Forbidden Drive behind Pachella Fields. There have been years of erosion and stormwater. You may have seen it down that trail that caused this worsening gully, which is not only an imposition for park visitors that are going through the park, but also creates access issues for our municipal partners trying to get through, as well as the water infrastructure that is underneath. So working with the water department, who is almost finished with design with their consultant, we are going to be building a forested infiltration basin at the top of the hill, as well as a series of rock armored ditches and channels to help get the water down the hill in a way that doesn't damage the water, or damage the trail and carry additional sediment down to the creek. And this project is funded by the Department of Environmental Protection, the Commonwealth Financing Authority, as well as a grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And currently our schedule is to potentially bid out construction toward the end of this year, with work to start next year. And I also have just some renderings to give you an idea of what that work will look like. So on the left is the forested infiltration basin that's designed to catch as much stormwater as possible that's coming from the surrounding area, and collect and infiltrate into the hillside. And then for the water that's left over that continues to make its way down toward the creek, the series of step pool channels and ditches to have the water go down in a way that doesn't damage the trail. And that's all I got. And I'll turn it over to Ruffian to give you some updates on our Valley Green Run project.
Thanks, Pauline. That was a lot. But here we are. I'm having a hard time. I want to look there. I got to put my glasses on to see that. Our Valley Green Run Restoration and Pedestrian Bridge Project. This is the year. We're doing it. We're doing it. I'm happy to report that the very first work item happened, which was preparing the site for utilities to move from one side of the road to the other. So it's very exciting. We hope to be breaking ground in the spring. We're targeting late March. And you can see the red project area here. I know some of you have seen this image before. Many of you have heard my talk either at this meeting or at any of my other road shows for this project. But you can see the rendering here, the 3D rendering, and the conditions on the site. So the bridge was built in, I believe, 2004, this collapsed bridge by our structures crew to keep access along the way, the trail down from the upper lot at Valley Green, going all the way down to the stone bridge. In 2004, the trail went that whole length. There were some very large storms that year that wiped out the bank and the trail, and structures crew built, I don't know, many of you probably remember it. I thought it was the most wonderful little bridge. It looked very rickety, but it was solid. Unfortunately, the bank that it was built on was not. And after 10 good years of service, it collapsed. That was 2014. And 2015, we were awarded the first grant for this project. So it's been on the list for a long time. The stream work will be the first phase that happens in March. And that will continue the restoration that happened in 2013. So if you see the upper lot with the boulder step pools there, also if you've been around as long or longer than me, you remember the fun of the upper lot where it was crumbling into the stream and perhaps your car would go with it at some point. Certainly many parking curbs went over the edge through the years. So the large boulder step pools there have been very resilient, doing their job, and that treatment will continue on. When they put in those step pools, they'll put in the foundation of the bridge. So, what have we done? We've got this thing permitted, which was a huge hurdle. And we will be doing construction in the spring, as I said. Not only will the larger bridge go in, but there will be a new smaller bridge crossing the way. The two will be of the same materials. Luckily, the little bridge does not require a concrete piers. It can just be built crossing the span. And we're fully permitted. And we have added some additional features to the project with additional funding. You'll see this north approach here. And that will deal with the delightful feature. It seems funny to say, do you know this storm drain? But I think you probably do. It's a funny little grate that's above, not below, and there's a pipe that comes out that shoots the water into it. So we're working to get that a little neater in the area so that it's not in the trail. So the big thing, this is the big thing we're going to do this year. We're going to build this bridge. We're going to break ground. We're going to build it, and we're going to love it. Unfortunately, to get our bridge, there is going to be a disruption to access, and so the road is going to be closed. When construction begins in March, there will be no vehicle access from Valley Green Road into the park, and the trail access to the, you can see, I'm sorry, the X's tell you where you can't go, unfortunately. And this is because we will have cranes and large loaders and big piles of rock and lots of vehicles in and out, so the road will be closed. But then it'll be a minor blip. It'll be behind us, and we're going to love our bridge. And we really need it, because it's really bad. You can see that the stone wall there has collapsed, that we continue to have a lot of trees falling in the way. But this makes it a little hard to walk. You have to walk around it. Yeah, so we're going to fix that. And this is bulgy, so tighten that up. Here's the cutaway of the boulder step pools, one of my big rocks. We heard from Rick some of the challenges. Luckily, our slope, well, there it is, greater than 25% here, is not as steep as the chute, so we're able to do the large boulder step pools, approximately 9 of them. And then we will be replanting. There's some kind of nice little bits of rhododendron in this area. There's some trees that are hitting the end of their lifeline, so there will be some tree removal that has to happen, but there will be restoration along the way. And hopefully that will improve the riparian buffer. And then these boulder step pools really working to, most of the time, catch the water, let it infiltrate, settle, slow down, and those really, really high events, those big stones stay in place and convey that water down to the creek. Here we're coming down from the upper parking lot, and we're crossing, we're going along. We come out just above the stone bridge. These poles, they're going to move. And the reason why they're moving is the bridge will come in and need to be set into place with a crane. And the wires are in the way. So, got some facts here about it. We're pretty long. Actually, almost twice as long as what we had originally spec'd out when we first bid out the project. We've gone through several iterations, White Pine Bridge that was on the bank side, on the road side. Really the committee that's involved with this, our partners at the water department, staff, and our consultants really started thinking hard about, we really want to build for resiliency. If a tree falls on it, if water flows over it, if someone, not everybody loves the things we put in the Wissahickon, so built to withstand any sort of damage, weather or human-related, and that it is possible to be repairable. So nothing too custom or unique that was specialty forged in Liechtenstein. That these are unique, standard parts and things that we can replace. That we have the manuals that staff and if we need to hire a contractor come in and help us, can do that fairly easily. So really trying to be practical about what we're putting in, and still it will be a beautiful addition to the park. Here we have the bird's eye view. looking at coming into the bridge. Again, this is what we're calling the north approach area. The viewing deck, so it will get wider as you come out, and if you want to stay and linger and gaze upon our beautiful stone bridge, the amazing rocky outcropping that's there, look across the way, it allows people to stay. And this section will have the see-through grating so that you can look down and see what's underneath. And I will just point out that the netting on the side will be this same exact, so you can netting as they have here inside. And in this north approach area, of course, you know, all of these things take resources. As so many people have, and companies and state agencies and private foundations have contributed, and there will be beautiful commemoration of those investments. And there are, I'll just say, space is still available. So we have stones, we have planks, I have a grid. This is also available on the website. And there we are. And I'm happy to field any questions and or call up my colleagues to answer questions if I know we did do some questions along the way, but otherwise, that's where we're at. Clap first, and then I'll answer questions. Yes.
I think I ask this every year that I come, and I know this really involves the city or the state, but I was curious if there's ever been any thought put into a pedestrian bridge parallel to Bells Mills Road that would make it safer to cross the creek.
Yes, I think we should all write this on our personal vision boards. Pedestrian bridges across Bells Mill Road, even across Valley Green Road would be fabulous. I do know that both those bridges, the Valley Green Stone Bridge and the Bells Mill Bridge, that the city has applied for funding. Those bridges need a lot of restoration. And if they are awarded the funding to do that, I'm sure there will be a public opportunity for comment, and one of our comments will be find a way for safe pedestrian access as you're doing that. I think there should be a way, that won't be cheap, but there could be a way to preserve those are part of the visual landscape of the Wissahickon, and we don't want to change them, but I think there is a way to add that safe pedestrian feature and get people across Bells Mill. I agree, that's a big challenge.
It's a state road, so is there funding from the state? It's no emergency.
The funding that I know they've applied for is federal funding. So yeah. There is state funding for roads and bridges, but the one that I know that the city has applied for is a federal program. Yes.
Very quickly, while it is understandably closed, especially in spring and summer, as you know, a huge entrance point, particularly for people who never ever have been to the park.
Definitely.
Weekends are special.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's that plan for people who I fear will create ways to come down through the brush anyway, or coming across on the trail on a bike and have to cross over?
So the first thing that we'll do, probably in the next few weeks, is roll out our communications plan. It's a coordinated effort with Parks and Recreation and the Water Department. All three, the two city agencies and FOW will have the same information about what's going on in that area. If we get into construction and the road can be opened at certain times, then we will push out that information and let people know. But right now the best course is to plan for the full closure and then see what happens. So, yes.
We have some signage planned around.
And when you get to the site, when you meet that you can't go any further, there will be signs that say, 1, why, and 2, where else you can go. Thank you all for coming. And as I mentioned, it's our 100th anniversary. We have a huge program of events. We'll have all the volunteer days that we usually have, plus more that Shawn talked about. We're going to have a great community celebration. We'll have a swanky gala, so we've got it all, whatever your desire is to celebrate with us. We have something for everyone, so hope to see you many times this year.